So don't share anything I don't want to have broadcast to the world.
Don't worry. Be careful. Don Graybill.
Whoa.
All right. Watch your nose. Watch your nose. Okay, Don. And please tell me, pronounce your name and all again.
Don Graybill.
All right. And you live in Palm Desert.
Palm Desert, California.
How long have you lived in Palm Desert?
Well, I've been here for 2 periods of time. In the 60s, I moved here in 66 and left in 70 as a married man.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back in 79 as a divorced man and have been here ever since.
All right. And have you lived in the same place? Have you lived in various places?
Nope. The last tenure has been in the same home.
Okay.
Yep. Well, I lived in Cathedral City for a couple of years until I got married in 81
Okay.
when I moved to Palm Desert.
All right. Where do your ancestors come from?
Not too familiar. Talked of my grandfather coming from Kansas across to the state of Colorado, where his family, it was too cold for my mother to be in Colorado, so they kept on coming to the Oregon, which was still too cold, and ended up in Orange County, California.
Mm-hmm. And where were you born?
In Fullerton, California.
Okay.
Yep.
And when you first came to the desert, what was the reason you first came to the desert?
I had applied. My cousin Carl Kistner, who I just happened to have talked to on the phone last night for about 45 minutes, and he and I are the only 2 of our generation, and here we both are living in the Coachella Valley.
Oh, is that right? Does he live? He lives here as well?
Yeah, he lives in Rancho Mirage.
Okay. I was going to ask you, do other family members live nearby besides him, or?
I have opened my home to my son and his wife for about the last 5 years, and they live with me here in Palm Desert.
Mm-hmm. And when you first came here,
I didn't explain why I came here.
Okay.
I got a teaching job.
Okay.
I had been taking courses. I'd been in the Army and came back, went to school to get a form more credits to my name. So when I started earning income, I would be receiving more income as almost fulfilling my master's program. Not quite, but so I taught out here for 4 years at Washington School on Portola Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, right. I could walk to this school in 10 minutes from my home now.
Well, where did you go to school? At COD or?
No, I had graduated from Fullerton JC earlier on before I joined the Army. And then I came back after the Army of 3 years and took a couple more years of school at Cal State Fullerton. And then I already had a BA from Chapman at that time. And so it's kind of a mix-up of education there. But I came out for a full teaching job, and I stayed at Washington, or on Portola there, for 4 years.
What did you teach?
4th grade.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, 4th grade. And Rob is always introducing me as his former teacher, and indeed that's the case.
Was he a student of yours?
Yes, Rob was, and I became acquainted with his dad, Bob Pitchford, and often visited him on Fairway. But yeah, Rob, I recall quite a few classes, and there were so many students I had, but he was a very quiet young student, and I enjoyed the years I taught here.
So, let's see, when you first came here, what was it like around here? What did it look like around here?
It was pretty open. Oh, I had to get out of Orange County when I got out of the service because when I came back in '64, it was just too crowded in Fullerton, and I stayed in Placentia and went to school there for a couple of years at Cal State, and yeah, it was too crowded. Orange County had changed too much. I used to go down Harbor Avenue as a high school student to Newport Beach, and it was just too crowded for me. So I came out to the desert to get away from the traffic and the people.
Now, what year was that again?
66.
66. Okay,
Yep.
so 1966, you came on out here. Now, I think you mentioned a little bit, but what brought you to be in the desert?
Well, the only connection I had, I applied, San Diego was kind of crowded, and I just thought I'd rather I wasn't too familiar with the desert, but I do recall coming out here as a child with my family and going to the Date Festival, and then my cousin Carl lived here, and he was into real estate and serving in restaurants, and he's about the only other connection I had. So I looked him up and got acquainted with a fellow that rented a studio to me for $100 a month, and I lived in that little studio behind a house on the Palm Village area on San Pasquale, which is still there. I go and visit them every once in a while. A nice little place, all crowded in now.
Yeah. So you started how many children do you have?
Well, at that time I was single.
Yeah.
And I didn't get married. I met a lady and in '70, part of a Christian singles group, a very small one, and we both wanted to get married. Probably not for the best reason to be married, but that's what happened. And from that inception, I decided to move out of the desert.
I see.
I had 4 years and knew what it was like, but I was kind of not wishing to be teaching for the rest of my life.
I see.
But I knew I newly married, I had to support my wife. And so I found a job after circling the state, going up 395 in the gold country and up to the northern part of California, coming down and interviewing at different, this is during the summer of '70. And I got a job in the nice town of Santa Rosa, California, above San Francisco, about an hour's drive. And so within a couple of weeks, I had agreed to purchase a home and accept a job in Santa Rosa. And there we moved, and within 2 years, I had 2 children, 2 sons, 2 boys, and one of which lives with me now.
Yeah.
And the other lives and has visited with me just over Easter break this year, just a month ago, from Florida. So the 2 sons were at the house.
Yeah. But now this was in Santa Rosa. Did you also raise them here down in the desert as well?
Well, what happened, the marriage was pretty shaky from the start. And after having 2 sons, I felt kind of trapped. Boy, I've got myself into whatever is going on here, but I had no desire to divorce or anything. I wanted to make a go of it, but it just wasn't her intention to continue on. And so she moved back after probably 4 years in Santa Rosa, but we only lived together about 3. And she divorced and eventually moved back to Coachella Valley, to Palm Springs, to live in Palm Springs at her old home where she grew up. And that's where my children were raised.
I see. So you came back.
I came back in '79 after about 4 years of being away from the boys, and because that's the only way I could be a father,
Right.
where the kids lived. And
Well,
But
did you have visitation with your
Yes.
boys?
Yeah, not a whole lot. They lived at home and were kind of involved with school there and everything. And I
Well,
was.
now where did they go to school?
They attended in Palm Springs
Oh.
at. They could walk to school. I'm trying to think of the name of the Chula Vista.
Okay.
There in Palm Springs, and that's where they spent their entire education up through high school.
They graduated from there?
Yeah, both of them graduated from high school in Palm Springs. During that period, this is later on, but I met a lady and we got married in 81, another Christian gal. And I had hoped that the boys would be able to live with my new family because Beverly had a young daughter, 4 years old, Christina Batson, and she's the only one I really raised. She was just 4 when we got married, and she had graduated from COD by the time she left town.
Yeah.
So, and they came over for about 6 months, according to the judge's ruling, and I was really heartbroken when they went back to live with their mom, because I had hoped that we could be a family,
Yeah.
And we measured each height. I got the kids' heights on the bedroom scale, and also on the grandkids when they come to visit. Everybody's been registered.
Oh, that's precious.
Yeah. So.
Well, now, what was it when you think about the time frame when your sons were living here? Because it's about Palm Desert.
Yeah.
What was it like living here in the desert? What was it like? Were there stores? Where'd you go shopping? What'd you do on the weekends and stuff like that?
Well, when I was teaching the initial period from 66 to 70, I was kind of tucked into my classroom. I had 30 kids.
Was that considered a big class then? Or was it pretty average?
It was pretty average. Anything less was probably in the high 20s.
I see.
And primary, they had very good primary school teachers. In fact, I re-met one of the teachers when I came back in 81 or 79, and she was a member of Jane Cameron and Barbara B.J. Callahan. They were both teachers when I was at the school
Okay, tell us a little bit about B.J. Callahan.
Well, I got involved when I retired from teaching and got into surveying. We haven't even gotten to that yet, but I became acquainted with Mrs. Callahan because I had known her as a former teacher, and she was still teaching. And I think she was a member here. She and Dan Callahan, her husband, were both quite solid members here at the.
In what way were they? They were solid members of the city. In what way were they solid members?
Well, they were a member of the Historical Society, and she got me involved with calling people as I became retired, to call and try to talk to the members that had not been coming to meetings and stuff like that. So I enjoyed talking to people over the phone, and I met quite a few people that way back in in 2000 when I retired. I've retired from both teaching. I retired from teaching up in Santa Rosa because I went back to school up there on an AA program. I don't want to talk about Santa Rosa too much because this is about Palm Desert, but that's where I learned how to survey. I became a surveyor out in the field.
Explain what a survey. You're taking a survey over the phone, and you're taking a survey in the land.
There are two very separate things. Well, I had, after I've taught for 7 years total, 1 year in Orange, California, another 4 years here in Palm Desert, and another 2 years up in Santa Rosa. And after that, I said, I've taught enough. I've been indoors for too long. I need to get out and work in the open air. So I became acquainted with a teacher that I really enjoyed at Santa Rosa JC, and he taught a course in surveying, which was part of the civil engineering program they had at Santa Rosa JC. So I learned that program up there and came down the second time to Palm Desert looking for a job as a surveyor, because I had some experience up there and eventually found enough to support the family here.
Well,
in
what would your job consist of down here in the desert? What would you do? Like,
I would be out looking for corner points and just doing whatever the civil engineer that was employing me at the time, because I didn't work for a city or anybody for very long a time. You work for a job, and if they need you, you work for them until the job's over.
I see.
And I spent some time down in Embroil County for 6 months, working on a plant down there and it was a long time to go back and forth. So I ended up living down there for 6 months during my marriage, which wasn't a very good idea, but it was good because it helps buy my home that I am now living in.
So let's say you were a surveyor for this plant. What would you survey the edges of the property line, or
Well, one of the best jobs I had was helping to lay out the Desert Marriott Palm Springs, Desert Springs Marriott. And I had that job for a year, which is kind of rare to have a job for 1 year unless you're working for a city or something like that. So it helped give me good, secure working conditions.
What were some of the challenges of being a surveyor?
Well, I was not really qualified to be a certified surveyor. I just wanted to work out in the field, drive stakes, keep healthy. I wanted to be out, I did not want an office job. And I wanted to be out in the field working with another guy or two. And usually that's all that was on a field crew, either one other person that was qualified to be a land surveyor, or another fella, 3 of us working for a qualified surveyor that had jobs. And I worked in Riverside County in the city of Riverside for 2 years before I retired.
What about in Palm Desert?
Yeah.
What property would you say you worked on that's a recognizable property? Anything you could think of?
Well, most of the jobs were not local.
Oh, they weren't.
I worked in Riverside itself, and you had to travel to Riverside.
Oh, I see.
I did work out here for several surveyors, but they weren't. They were just local, like building a bridge over the Whitewater Channel.
Yeah. That
goes over connecting. What was that street? El Dorado. It connected El Dorado with Fred Waring, which at that time...
That's a beautiful bridge.
Yeah, which at that time was not Fred Waring, it was Highway 44. That was called Highway 44. That job was a nice job, and you never know where you were going to work the next day when you're working for somebody like that. But the best job, like I mentioned, was Desert Springs Marriott. And we laid out the different buildings there and kept track of how high the buildings. It's 8-story high building there,
Yeah.
And so it was a great job, and you never knew what was going to happen from day to day.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
What kind of a bridge? You're talking about that bridge that goes over
right across the wash.
The wash.
Uh-huh.
Okay, tell us about the wash. What is that? What is that wash called?
Well, it's the wash that that's it's always been called. All it is the Whitewater River going from Whitewater, which crosses I-10, up at outside of Banning and Beaumont and that area. Whitewater, it crosses. In fact, the old 99 bridge just got wiped out very recently. The 2 rainstorms we had wiped out the central 2 channels that held up the old 99, and it I think it's still just barely standing. It might be falling apart by now.
Was that in Whitewater, that 99?
Yeah,
was
99
in
across
the-
the
yeah.
Whitewater.
No, it gets a lot. That's where it starts. Where does the Whitewater start?
It's the water that comes off San Gregorio
Oh.
and San Jacinto, both of them. Well, actually, San Jacinto is more for Palm Springs area.
Mm-hmm.
The Whitewater starts from San Gregorio, which
Right.
is the bigger mountain. It's 11,500 feet.
It's the runoff from.
It's all the water from the runoff of snow and rain, and it flows all the way from Whitewater area under the Tin, all the way down to Salton Sea, the low point in the valley, 250 feet below sea level. Indio is at sea level. So it's just the main river, which doesn't flow very often, but when it does, it wipes out cars and people that are foolish enough to cross when they shouldn't be crossing.
So at Whitewater, it's pretty wild water up there, right?
It is.
And then it reduces as it goes down. Is that?
Yeah, well, now most of the crossings are bridges, but when the white water is flowing, you don't go across that if
I
you've
see.
got any sense in your head, because it can take down a car. It's happened. People have died in their car being washed down the whitewater. And now there's mostly bridges all the way. Cook Street is one of the few that never will have a bridge because it kind of flows under great big 8-foot diameter tubes, and you don't need a bridge there. The
I
only
see.
area that doesn't get that is still crossed is Indian Avenue in Palm Springs, and that is just too big of a span for a bridge.
I see.
Yeah. Now back to Palm Desert, we have several crossings, but all the river water from Palm Canyon. You know, if we have the Route 74 goes up Palm Canyon. I mean, no, that's not Deep Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Deep Canyon runoff. This town is built on the big alluvial fan, and it was called Sandhole. There was nothing here, you know, nothing.
What do you
here.
mean nothing here?
You can go look up maps that would pictures taken an aerial view of Palm Desert. It was called Sandhole. Sandhole was the name of this area.
And what do they mean by sandhole? What do they mean? It was nothing? Or?
Nothing here but sand.
Now, were you here when they actually called it sandhole, or you just?
No. In '66, I came and they had Portola Avenue and a school. That was the first school in Palm Desert.
West Washington?
Washington School. It had several names before that.
Ah.
Shadow Mountain School, Presbyterian School. It was associated with the Shadow Mountain School early on. Gary Olson, a friend of mine, was in the first graduating class at Washington School, which went up that year and for several more to the 8th grade. And he had to go to Indio High. Oh no, Coachella High. That was the next high school that
Oh, it
he
wasn't
could
even
go
Indio yet?
to. It wasn't Indio High School yet.
Oh.
It was pretty early on. His dad was Imperial County Chrysler dealership. And he walked from his house across Shadow Mountain Club, watched the figure 8 pool being built, and eventually had a car to go to high school because his dad was in Imperial County.
Are you about the same age as Gary? I don't
He's
know.
a couple, 3 years older than I.
So
yeah.
did you know each other back then?
We met mainly through my getting involved with the church in Rancho Mirage. The first church built in Rancho Mirage, and that happened I met a fella that wanted to start a school or a church. His name was Bracy Ball, and it became
What's his
family.
name?
Bracy Ball.
A Bracy Ball. Okay, that's an unusual name.
Yeah, it is. He's not at that church, and that church isn't even functioning now. But it
What
was.
church? What was it called then?
It was called Family Life Church in their first church in Rancho Mirage. They had no church in Rancho Mirage. I didn't think they really wanted one. But he had a friend of his that said, come on out here to Coachella Valley. I run a church called Southwest, and it's pretty growing out here. People are coming out to the valley.
Yeah.
And Rancho Mirage needs a church. And he did that. And I got involved. I did a topo map of that church on my own. I still have it in my files, which is showing what the ground was like before any church was built there.
You're talking about the one in Rancho Mirage right now? Okay.
Yeah. It's called JPL right now because they bought it. They sold it. The
Is
church.
that on Monterey?
It's on Monterey,
Yeah.
just north of Country Club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a few lots up. And Bracy Ball was the preacher, and we had a nice congregation. It was sad to see that church fall apart after
What
a
happened?
while. Yeah.
What happened?
Well,
Done.
indiscretion within the leadership.
Yeah.
And, you know, that happens too often, but that's what happened. A lot of the people that I meet in different churches around town came from that church,
I see.
from the
Interesting.
Family Life Church.
So it was a very strong presence here in the desert.
Yes, it was.
What about Southwest? How does that connect?
It was already established here, and it's over on Washington Street and Fred Waring. But it was 44 Avenue when that started, at Washington and 44. And it's still, well, I don't go there, but I know a few people from there. I know a lot of people in different churches around town.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm quite a religious guy, and I have a love for God, and just want Him to be appreciated and obeyed, and built a country that we can be proud of. You know, it's kind of a scary country right now. Here it is.
Are you belonging to a congregation right now?
I'm really not. I'm
Do you
really
want to?
not. I have some strange views. I don't believe in the Trinity.
Okay.
And it's one of the foremost beliefs in any Christian church, but I believe in Jesus, the Messiah.
Well, you're a free thinker.
I
think
guess
for
so, but
yourself.
I never have believed in it since high school. They tried to teach me that in high school, and I says, what are you talking about? Gee, God is one God. He's got His name in the Bible hundreds of times, thousands of times. You don't have to make up another God. So that might get me in a little trouble, but that's one reason I
No, I
really
think
don't feel at home yet in many churches, although I do quite a bit of volunteering.
I know you do. What other volunteering do you do?
Well, I do for the food program up at the St. Margaret's Episcopal Church. They have a wonderful food program up there, Chet, and runs it well. In fact, Sunday we're going to have a volunteer appreciation dinner. So I get
What is that? What do you do as a volunteer?
I'm one of the cardboard guys. We tear cardboard
really?
boxes apart. I keep my hands and arms strong and ride my bike around town to keep my legs strong.
I see you.
I'm 85 years old, and most of the people my age, you know, they're not doing what I'm doing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, is it like a hidden harvest? Do you give out food there? Is that what you mean by food bank?
Yeah, they have had this program for many years, and they finally decided, you know, it's better if we just set up program here at the church.
Yeah.
And they learned a lot of things how to do it properly, and they have a whole row of freezers and refrigerators and everything, and 400 people every Tuesday come up there and sign in every Tuesday and get their free meals, and I'm part of the cardboard gang.
Well, do they pick up food or do they eat the food there too?
Oh, no, they take it home.
Or they take it home?
Yeah, they take it home. Yeah.
And what kind of people contribute? How do they get their food there?
Well, Chet can tell you all about
okay.
that, but he's in charge of, a lot of it comes from national outlets, chains, and Costco, and
I see.
different stores, anything that's beyond date. You know, a lot of food comes from the members themselves too, not basically, but in big old vats. I mean, you're talking about a load of apples, a load of oranges, a load of who knows what, carrots. Yeah, I mean, it can be anything.
You're talking about St. Margaret's right now.
Yeah. And we
Wonderful.
package it up, get it ready, and hand it. So they get a whole wagon full of load of food. Milk products sometimes if they're available. It's a very well-run program.
what does it feel like when you see them coming and picking up the food? What is your feeling? Of it?
I'm kind of in the back. Don't see a whole lot out of that. I'm at the get the food out into packages and frozen stuff and produce stuff and canned stuff, and it comes out of boxes. A lot of it, not always out of a pallet. A pallet full, a pallet of food. They deal with that. They can have a pallet and that lifts it up and puts it on top of another
they have
pallet.
A crane.
Yeah, I mean you have to have a crane.
Pallet mover. Oh
yeah,
my God.
Yeah. I don't do that too much.
Do they have you moving the crane sometimes?
Sometimes.
Oh, really?
Not too much.
Oh. Now, do you remember? What are some of your memories from? Let's talk about some memories. Like, were you around when the Shadow Mountain Club was built?
No, that I didn't. When I was teaching school, I didn't even know about it. Although I lived within a stone's throw of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a different group of people than I'm acquainted of. I had a little motorbike. I had an English Ford van. Those are my vehicles, and I went to school back and forth from my little studio, one-room studio. And I remember somebody being killed at the highway at Portola and 111, a motorcyclist getting wiped out, he had the right of way to turn left onto Portola, but somebody just ran the signal.
Now, did you go over the Palm to Pines Highway? Did you go over that highway sometime, drive over?
It's interesting because my mom and I knew about the road, all the nice countryside up by Lake Elsinore. And I decided to come out one day, the back road, come down 74 and go into Palm Desert. I thought that'd be a good way just to find out what's up above Palm Desert. And I encountered a subdivision being built up there called Springcrest. And I decided...
How far up was it?
It was 70 miles.
17 or 70?
17 miles.
Okay.
It's before you get to
Carrizo?
It's way before Carrizo coming down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming down.
And I decided to buy a lot up there.
Oh.
And I still own that lot. I pay $100 a year for property.
That's funny. Is there still a subdivision there?
There's homes there. Red Skelton had a home up there. I didn't know it at the time, but maybe I did. Can't remember. That was one of the
What made you
pitches.
buy that lot?
I loved the view. I could look down from my view on a cone circle, and I could see Palm Springs at night, the whole Palm Springs area. I'm looking down Palm Canyon. I'm looking down it. And I thought, wow, maybe if I like the job up here, I might build a little place up here.
Yeah.
But then I married a lady that had a home here. And so that was put on second hold, but I still own that lot.
So it's a subdivision, and some of the lots have been built on and some have not, is that?
One of the guys that went to our picnic last weekend stopped by this morning and picked up a few things that I said, well, come up and take a few of these things because we have so many of them. We don't need them. Little signs that he enjoys putting on trails, about biking and walking and hiking and that kind of stuff. And we have a bunch of them. And so he picked up a couple of them today, the very day.
What's his name?
John. John is,
Is he the one that does the emceeing?
No, but he's a biker. He's a mountain biker, and he knew Springcrest pretty well because people go up there, get off 74 and pick up snow from the desert, or just take their kids up there and go. When it does snow, it can snow at 4,500 feet, and that's about where my lot is. And it goes, you can see all the way to Santa Rosa, which is over 8,000 feet. Santa Rosa Peak is at 8,000 feet. That's
Santa
right
Rosa
behind
Peak.
you.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's 74 was built in the 30s. And
right.
Yeah, it was one of the routes was planned possibly through Palm Canyon, but they decided not to do it because it all Indian land. They said, no way, you're not going to build a road through Palm Canyon. That's our country. You know, Andreas Canyon, all these canyons that are very important.
Are there more Indian territories? You know, it's checkerboard, I think.
Yes, checkerboard.
It's not checkerboard in Palm Desert, though,
no,
right?
because we are far enough away from I-10 that the checkerboard was a result of the Highway 10 going through our valley, and the railroad coming to our valley, and the nation. The railroads were given 10 miles on each side of the highway.
Yeah.
To build towns along the way. The federal government could only give every other 10-mile section. You know, a section is they call it a township.
Mm-hmm. How big is a township?
36 square miles. So there are 36 sections you have townships and ranges. And they all start from a point up in the Santa Rosa Mountains out of San Bernardino. And all this country is divided up into townships. That's how
When
California.
you say this country, you mean?
California. And even the state, the nation, much of it is, almost all of the country, except the East Coast, they had Louisiana Purchase. And that infected, instigated the Lewis and Clark expeditions, and everything west. Jefferson did a wonderful job of buying that land, enlarging our country double-fold. Just amazing. But all that land has been sectionalized.
Yeah.
Yeah, townships and ranges. But,
so let's see. So Palm Desert. Do you remember when it was incorporated? Palm Desert. The city was,
It happened when I was. It was not a city yet. It became a city in '73, and I was not too much involved with city anything until later on. But I just knew my teaching. My kids were my class, and I had quite a few of them, 4 good classes. I went on one of my trips over to Hawaii because one of my students said, "Come over and visit me in Hawaii. My family, you can stay at the house for a week." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And I taught summer school once and said, "No more of that." Although it was a fun deal.
Normally, you didn't teach summer school.
Well, it was too hot. A teacher can get out of a hot, in the summertime, you can go.
And you did.
And I did. I went to Hawaii. I went to Alaska. I took my van up to Alaska on a ferry. Spent all summer up there.
Where was the ferry from Washington?
No, that started actually at our first visit was Prince Rupert, and I stayed there. And the ferry, you can get out for the same price, and a couple of weeks later, hop on again and go to the next town. And I did that all the way up to Alaska. I had an income from the job because I spread my payments over a 12-month period. Not much, but back then it was about $12,000 or $6,000 a year. Back in the '60s. But that's one reason I decided. I didn't do much better in surveying, but at least I got a better, and I got outside. Yeah.
Do you remember any special events or festivities here in the desert, like when
those early years? Well, I remember there were no curb and gutters. I remember stopping along the side of the road, and it was just gravel. Just gravel, and the traffic was minimal, especially, and it was empty in the summertime. It was just empty. You could hardly buy anything. But there were a few stores, thank goodness. Like the grocery store and the hardware store, the lumber yard.
What was the name of the grocery store?
Well, my neighbors, Jim and Daisy Gray, had it at Gray's Market.
Okay.
They had a village market owned by Keaty's was open for business, but I never even knew about it because I didn't go out to eat much. You know, I'm just the lady that she had made really good pizzas in the house in front of me on San Pasquale. They kind of had me over and brought food, and I ate my own stuff a lot, you know, right there at the little studio where I ate. And I've met several people that knew about, in fact, I remember being offered to buy the house in front of me of this, which is really just a garage converted to a studio. I could have bought it for $17,000 back then.
Are you glad
C.T.
you did?
Gordon was the name of the guy that owned the house and the lot behind. And I decided, no, I'm not going to stay in the desert. I'm going to move somewhere else. I'm not going to live here. But I could have bought it for $17,000.
Do you remember, for example, growth spurts where all of a sudden you saw all this building going on?
No, that's what happened. I left in 70. It was nice and quiet. I came back in 79. What happened?
Oh,
everything
really?
happened. All these things. Monterey Country Club was there. All these country clubs. I think Portola might have been there, but Monterey wasn't there. All these new developments, and Marrakesh wasn't there. It was just starting out when I left. Just a little bit of apparently it was the time when they were moving sand in to build a sand hill. Speaking of sand hills, Marrakesh brought in tons and tons and tons of sand to build
elevate?
a country club.
I see.
You know, off a country job, you turn right and go right into the courthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do they call the country club?
Clubhouse?
Clubhouse,
Okay.
yeah, clubhouse. I was not a clubhouse guy, but you know, I just got along. You know, I meet people. Some of the people I met were members of the school. I mean, their kids go to the school, and you meet a lot of people. One of my favorite people was a guy named Walt Fixo, and I had his daughters, two of his daughters, and he ended up moving he ran a cosmetics warehouse. He made pretty good money selling cosmetics besides doing pools. And
he did pools and
he
cosmetics?
he did both. And we met at the Lutheran church where I joined, which was right next to I was not a Lutheran, but is right next to Washington School. So I started going to Lutheran church. I was in a choir.
Is the Lutheran church still there?
Still there.
I know. What's that called?
Hope Lutheran.
Okay.
Hope Lutheran. I've got a picture of the guy that married me at my house. What is his name? His wife still goes there. He divorced, but his wife still goes to Hope Lutheran Church. And I love the two pastors there, but they believe in the Trinity, and I can't be a member.
Interesting.
I go to Bible studies on Tuesday very infrequently,
Yeah.
so they know where I'm coming from.
What are some of the things that you find the most rewarding about being here?
Well, it's a very planned city, very well planned city, and people with means and insight and vision have played a very big part in its development. It's done very wisely, and it's been paid off. The city council has been doing a very good job for many years, and the historical society has been frequently resulting in like Susan Marie Weber, Buford Kreitz, different members. I'm trying to think of it. Mrs. Benson, all have been mayors, and also all on the board at the firehouse here. So it's been blessed by wise decisions, really.
I noticed you mentioned Buford Kreitz. Now,
Yeah.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
Kreitz, yes.
He died recently, right?
Yes.
So I won't be able to interview him, but could you briefly say a little bit about him?
Well, he's one of my favorite people, now that you mention it. I didn't know him personally, but from my work at the food place, Buford had a homestead right above. Do you know where the cross is?
Yeah.
In the hills that's lit up at night? Well, he lives way down below that cross, right across the channel
Yeah.
that protects the wash. You know, the wash, I mean, the channel feeds into the wash to protect the rainwater when it comes a lot at one time.
Yeah.
But Buford lives in a very nice, I'm trying to think, Kauai Hill area.
Yeah, Kauai Hills.
It's a little farther north of Kauai Hills, but he had a very nice home. And I knew that he had fallen from his roof. And he had been on our board here. So I knew that his home was just across the wash, and I took food up to him because he was unable to get out of bed. He fell off his roof and was in pain on concrete for 2 nights without anybody knowing about it. And so he was rehabilitating up there, and I wanted to get acquainted with him because I did know him. He used to read the paper at a worm meetings, always killing me. He just wanted to know what was going on, and he made comments every once in a while. I just liked the guy, and he took me up in his truck one day. We went up all the way to his home that he kept going to up Highway 74 and then up toward Santa Rosa Avenue. He had a home that he kept. We wanted birds to be flying and the animals to be fed from that house, and so he took me up there one day, and it was really a treat to be in his red pickup truck. And I took a bunch of pictures. I got to go look at those up because it was a unique little place. But I loved that guy.
So you got to know him after you made a visit because you had heard that he had a fall.
Yes.
You went to visit, so then
Yes. Yeah.
And then how often would you visit him after that?
About once a month, until he did not recuperate.
He didn't.
No.
How did he feed himself up there?
Well, he was able to afford a service they brought and took care of him. You know, he could not get out of bed. I remember he invited me to lunch one time, and we had beans, and I'm not a bean person, but I ate him because I was not going to refuse a nice meal with Buford Kreitz. And in one of the visits I can remember, he came and shook my hand, and my God, he had the strongest grip.
Was he super tall?
No, he wasn't that tall, but he was just a strong man and he had a lot to do with our land being salvaged and kept around for trails and open land, not developed. Bighorn was one of the last thing, and the vintage and the Bighorn Eagle Canyon became a golf course, but not a place where you could have homes.
Because you feel like
He was instrumental in saving the open country around Palm Desert. Very instrumental, and that was his desire of his heart. And he was very effective in doing that, working with the Desert Springs, up Highway 74, trying to think of the name.
Friends?
Well, no, that's my lot, Desert Springs, and getting it. But you know, the highway up 74, and you turn off right at about 1,000 feet.
The lookout?
No, the lookout is about 4 or 5 miles, and that's a good place to look out over the desert too. They have Easter Rise Summit services up there. I went to one of them, cold as hell, but
up on the lookout.
You can drive up to the lookout at 74. A lot of people stop and just take a break there as they go up and down the hill. Yeah, the road is a wonderful road, but the drivers are not wonderful drivers. And one of our friends here at Desert Historical Society, Harry Quinn, lost his wife. Somebody ran into her head on. Just a terrible thing. And he lives up in there now, helping another lady that cannot travel around. Sandy, yeah. I haven't seen Harry for a long time, but we used to have a table in here, and he would get all his photos. He was quite a wonderful photographer and archaeologist, and he did a lot of good things for the Historical Society.
Do you
But
feel
he
that the
wa-
Historical Society
he's,
embraces him in the way he deserves, or what?
as far as I know, Brett is the one to talk to about Harry.
Okay.
He goes up and visit with him. I've been to Harry's place in Pinyon Pines, and been in the home where he was raised by his grandfather. It's a lovely estate. I mean, it's 2-story, but it looks like his grandfather's house where he remembers that from when he was a little kid. I mean, think, and he knew all the Indian trails, but his grandpa showed him all that stuff when he lived up there as a kid. And yeah, he's a real treat and real source of info for us. Yeah, Harry Quinn is very important. But Buford, yeah, we were talking about Buford. I was fortunate. I went to the memorial service they had at the Visitor Center, at the Visitor Center for the Santa Rosa and Mountain Monument. This is a national monument. And at that national
At the
monument,
Friends? It's called Santa Rosa Friends?
Friends of the Desert.
Yeah, Friends.
But we used to have lectures with them, and now we do the lectures on our own. We trade off every other.
You would have lectures with the
Friends of the Desert.
Oh, you would?
Yeah.
That sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah, well,
What happened with that?
I'm not quite sure. We just, things changed over the years,
All right.
leadership and everything, But I miss Buford. I wanted to mention that. I was honored to be informed about his memorial service when they brought all these things that he owned, and the family had gone through everything.
He had like an estate sale or something?
Well, he was at a memorial for him. People came and talked about him.
Oh.
And it was so
Where
great.
was it?
Up at that Friends Center.
Oh,
right,
it
right up.
was?
Yeah, this is
So that's about a year and a half ago or 2 years?
yeah, pretty recently. I'm not very good on dates and
All
stuff,
right.
but within the last 2 years. And I got a plaque that the city gave him. It was very comical to me, where he said, as mayor, we really appreciate you coming to most of the meetings, and we really don't think you deserve this, but you're the mayor, so we're going to give it to you anyway.
They like to kid him.
Yeah, it was a wonderful, and that was there, and I took it. It was available.
Oh.
And I also got.
So they gave away some things that, how sweet is
Yeah,
that?
and backpacks and stuff like that, and a belt. I took a belt that had a turquoise thing, highlight.
Really?
Wonderful thing. And
How many people came to something
so
like
many people, and afterwards people could just take a few things and a backpack or whatever they wanted, So it was a wonderful memorial for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he have children? Was he married?
I don't know too much. I think he did have a daughter, and I don't know too much about that connection. But yes, our daughter was involved. That was the family, and they made those things available after the family had given permission to do that. Yeah.
Compared to the earlier days in Palm Desert, how do you see it right now? I mean, building North Palm Desert, putting in all these country clubs and things like that. What is your opinion of the country club
Well,
life?
I think there are a lot of people that come to this valley for different reasons. And we have encouraged the ones that can afford to have country club living here. And that was a wise decision. It brought in a lot of wisdom besides a lot of money.
Yeah.
And examples of different types of structure, different structures, interest, art, music. I mean, all these different things that people are interested and have money to spend on, nice homes and Modernism Week and all these things that draw people besides health reasons. It's a wonderful, unique spot. I mean, either you go to Florida along the East Coast when the wintertime comes, or you go to Coachella Valley when it gets too freezing up in Canada and Washington and Oregon and Wisconsin and Illinois. People come here for a lot of reasons, and if you have a place to go to and it's nice, churches are growing, and that's why I'm saying it's well planned. It's well planned.
You mentioned something about, wait a minute, health.
Yeah.
Why do you, tell me about that? People used to come here more for their health?
Well, my second wife came here for her health because she has arthritis.
I
A lot
see.
of people need dry air.
Mm-hmm.
Artists come here for dry air, but for different reasons too. But medicinal reasons are aplenty. You know, I don't know too much, but Eisenhower Medical Center is a wonderful, wonderful care center. But a lot of people come because they need care. And Bob Hope, you know, and all the money that's come, the golf courses, people come here for golf, health. And I mean, it's just amazing, all the different reasons
Outdoor
people
living,
come here.
right? Outdoor living
Yeah.
and health. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a very healthy environment. Unless you're out on the highway. That's the most scary part. All these drivers now. So it's a wonderful place to be in the summertime if you don't mind the heat. You got air conditioning and the roads are empty.
Do you remember when they had the road kind of built between Palm Springs and Palm Desert or India, like when they changed the road to Fred Waring and the Country Club?
I think that must have happened in the 70s. A lot of that stuff happened in the 70s. Yeah, I remember one of the sad things that happened at the Lutheran Church. Mr. Maynard is driving around in a cart house and a cart today. I've seen him several times this past 2 weeks. His daughter was...
He's the locksmith. Mr. Maynard is the locksmith. Right?
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about
Lynn
that.
Maynard?
Is he the one that drives around in the little old-fashioned jalopy? I stop in and talk to him every once in a while because someone donated a blanket for a Model T Fords.
Oh.
Right here within the last year. And I went to the guy that... Well, I went to Mr. Maynard, asked her, would you like to have this blanket?
Oh.
It's built for driving around in the air, and sometimes
put it on your lap blanket.
Yeah. And he says, I got plenty of that kind of stuff. I don't need it. So I went over to the Deep Canyon Inn, where they had that Model T Ford.
Yeah.
That guy that owns that, I asked him if he wanted the blanket. He said, no, I don't have, where would I keep it? I have no interest in that. So the lady said, well, just hang on to it if you want.
Right.
That donated. Or I can't remember, but I do have it at my house to keep warm.
That's funny.
So anyway.
If you had to describe the desert, how would you describe it?
A very unique spot that draws people for many different reasons. I think people come here and they love it. They love it. They don't come here for full time, but a lot of them have full-time homes now. It used to be part-time, and if you had any sense, you got the hell out of here in the heat. But now air conditioning has changed all that. And I remember coming through the valley on 111, it must have been, because there was a 99, and that connected with Indio. But I remember an art building, the art we have here in the room here. Carl Bray had a gallery, and I remember.
Where was that now?
Yeah, it was.
Was it in India?
No, it was right before you get to Washington Avenue on 111.
Oh.
And they have a very nice memorial setting in brass telling his story. But here we have this paintings for sale right here in this very room.
Did you know Carl Bray, by the way?
He's been here. I remember taking pictures of him when he was here. Yeah, he got so that he could not stay at the gallery. Hal LaRover helped him move over to Banning, where his family wanted him to live. and there he died. You know,
Yeah.
but a lot of his stuff is here with family consent. You know,
I see.
yeah, he was one of the early people that knew how important Valley was. But it's a really interesting question why the Valley has done so well, because people have appreciated what's here. They've recognized what's here, and they like to come here and do what they do. They play golf, they play tennis. Have you ever been to a tennis tournament here? It's crazy. People come from Europe for golf and tennis. And I mean, I can't believe it. We took the fire truck there one year, and they could care less about history. They wanted to see who's there and what they're doing and playing. That's why they came here to us. So it's really interesting. I don't know what to tell you, but I'm here. My sons lived here, and I had to be with, but it didn't work out. But I ended up living in a very nice home, small, but 1,500 square feet. But I'm at home here.
Yeah.
I've lived here for 40 years plus, you know.
Yeah.
My wife lives elsewhere, not anywhere near California, and but I'm at home here. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
One other thing is, if you had some advice to give to a young person, what would your best life advice be?
Love God and to seek His will and live a happy life doing it. That would be my best advice. I have one son that has learned it quite well. He's a hospice chaplain and lives in Florida, doing that as his business, visiting people that are not going to be living much longer. And a lot of people are thinking about those things at their end of life, but it's better to think early on and build a better life because of it. Yeah.